My husband laughed and said, "Last night, I was with the finest woman alive." My answer was. The microwave clock glowed a smug neon green against the dark kitchen. Flashing 2:30 a.m. Simone stared at it as if it were counting down to an execution. She hadn't really slept in weeks, only drifted in and out of shallow, restless dozes that never softened the edges of her thoughts. Her husband hadn't been home, his phone had gone quiet, and that silence had said more than any apology ever could. This wasn't a night spent hunting for proof. She no longer needed it. This was a ritual, cold, steady, and deliberate. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. For months she had kept an exact mental ledger of his comings and goings. When he walked through the door, how he moved, what clung to his clothes. The smell that used to follow him home had once been familiar. Sandalwood and vetiver from the boutique she loved, the one that used to smell like comfort and slow evenings. Now there was something else. A heavy, overconfident cologne with an undercurrent of strange skin and cheap lust. It was the scent of someone desperate to look successful, promising more than it could ever deliver, just like him. Tonight, he didn't even bother pretending to be careful. The hush of their high-rise condo, 1,400 square feet she had largely paid for, was split open when Devon practically crashed through the front door with a loud, satisfied exhale. The sound was like a vault ceiling shut around her. He wore a new deep sapphire shirt she had never seen before, half unbuttoned, his suit jacket sharp and flawless, his posture loose with liquor and self-congratulation. The cloying cologne hit the air before his words did, pushing ahead of him like a declaration. Simone watched from the entrance to the living room, framed by pale city moonlight that spilled through the wide windows. Her worn cashmere robe fell softly around her, but there was nothing soft about her stance. Her arms were folded, her spine straight, her expression unnaturally calm. No tears, no rage, no accusation, just a stillness sharp enough to cut. He mistook that stillness for weakness. He couldn't see that months ago, some essential invisible thread between them had snapped. She no longer stood before him as his wife. She stood as a witness gathering evidence. 5 years, she thought, as silence pressed between them. 5 years of being a shadow, mistaking patience for strength, believing quiet loyalty might eventually summon his conscience. Instead, he had read her silence as indifference and her forgiveness as permission. She had been like a decorative object in his mind, installed in the expensive background of his life, useful, stable, and ultimately replaceable. The fragile warmth she'd once felt for him had been buried under something colder, a relentless resolve to even the scales. Devon, a star luxury real estate broker, prided himself on selling illusions. He'd polished his own history into a heroic, started from nothing narrative for clients, but with Simone he'd never bothered to sell anything. To him, her role in his life was guaranteed, unquestioned, and permanent. She would always be there, he believed, grateful for the lifestyle he flaunted. He had never truly seen her. He'd only admired his reflection in her. He stopped right in front of her, smelling of alcohol, smoke, someone else's perfume, and inflated ego. His eyes, slightly glassy, shone with predatory satisfaction. He leaned forward, crowding her space, and his smirk twisted his handsome features into something small and cheap. "What are you staring at?" he sneered, his voice loud and deliberately cruel. The jasmine and tobacco perfume on his skin hit her like a slap. "I met the best woman in the world tonight. You're nowhere near her level anymore. You've gone dull, worn out. Like an old rug. Or a sweater that should have been thrown out years ago. Did you think I owe you explanations, accountant? Go ahead, start screaming. I kind of like it. The more you rage, the better other women make me feel." He waited for the scene he craved, flying dishes, wild accusations, tears he could twist into "my wife's being dramatic" the next morning. He needed her outrage to recast himself as the misunderstood, irresistible man caught between jealous women. Simone did not give him any of it. She simply exhaled, a deep, quiet breath that left her body almost imperceptibly, as if something heavy and final had just slipped away. Not her dignity, not her strength, only the last remnants of illusion. Her grey eyes met him without pleading or fury, only a cold clarity that cut through his expensive wardrobe and expensive lies. Then she turned around and walked away. Her robe whispered over the marble floor, the only sound in the suffocating stillness. Devon was left standing alone in the foyer, his victory instantly cheapened. Her refusal to react stripped his triumph of meaning. He told himself she must be exhausted or depressed. Where would she go anyway, he thought. The mortgage tied her to him more securely than any ring. What he couldn't know was that the sigh she'd released had been their final farewell, delivered without a word. He eventually wandered to the kitchen, finished what remained of the whiskey, and collapsed into bed. His snores followed quickly, thick and heavy, as he dreamed of the Stonehaven estate, the colossal luxury property that would supposedly make him rich, cover most of the mortgage, buy him a champagne-colored Porsche, and secure his place beside Tiffany, the woman he flaunted as proof of his desirability. Simone lay on her side of the bed, eyes open, staring at the dark window where her faint reflection hovered among the city lights. She wasn't listening to his snores. She wasn't thinking about Tiffany. She was waiting, not for some outside storm, but for the one she had set in motion herself. 17 days had passed since she'd stopped crying and started planning. His latest affair had collided perfectly with something far more important. The knowledge that the Stonehaven estate he was selling contained a hidden structural flaw. The clients, Marcus and Tasha Jones, weren't just names in Devon's files. They were people Simone had known for years, professionals who trusted her judgment. Devon had charmed them into working solely with him, presenting Simone as a minor helper, but they still occasionally wrote to her through secure channels to confirm details. They liked her honesty, her precision. Through an old colleague in engineering, Simone had obtained internal geotechnical reports. The beautiful estate sat on unstable ground, near a difficult water table. The foundation, under certain conditions, would almost certainly begin to crack. The problem wouldn't show up immediately, but it was serious, and Devon knew it. He had concealed it to secure his enormous commission. In their industry, that wasn't just a mistake. It was professional suicide. He slept, drunk and oblivious, convinced he was untouchable. Simone rose quietly, the chill of the marble climbing into her bones like ice. He's a facade, she thought, a house that looks solid until the ground underneath gives way.
She took out an old flip phone she'd once used for travel and locked away. The small blue screen glowed in the darkness. No trembling, no hesitation. She scrolled to Marcus and Tasha's private number and typed a short, lethal message. Nothing emotional, only facts. The Stonehaven deal must not proceed. Devon has concealed foundation issues. Call me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Do not transfer any funds. I have the documentation. She hit send, shut the phone down, slipped it back into her robe pocket, and left the bedroom, leaving Devon snoring in the shadows. Simone sat at the kitchen table and poured herself a glass of ice water. Outside, the first faint line of morning slid across the horizon. She didn't want to ruin him through gossip or public scenes. She wanted to strike once, precisely, at the only thing he truly worshipped: his standing, his money, and his carefully built persona. By the time the sun lifted fully over the skyline, she was showered, dressed in a dark blue suit, and ready for work. The condo remained dim and heavy behind her, as if the walls themselves sensed their fate. At 7, Devon woke with a throbbing headache and a mouth that tasted like old liquor and arrogance. He noticed Simone wasn't there. He assumed, with smug certainty, that she was avoiding him out of hurt or shame, and the thought pleased him. He brewed coffee, ate stale bagels, skimmed property news, and imagined the Stonehaven Commission clearing the path to his independence. A new car, private celebrations with Tiffany, and a life where he paid attention to his wife only when it suited him. At 9, he was supposed to call his boss, Adrian Sterling, to confirm final steps before the closing. He was almost lightheaded with the thrill of it. But at 8:30, a shrill ringtone cut through the quiet. It wasn't his sleek phone on the nightstand. It was Simone's old emergency mobile lying in the kitchen drawer. Annoyed, he snatched it up. "Yeah?" he muttered, expecting spam or some relative he could brush off. "Simone, it's Tasha Jones." Thank God someone picked up. Tasha's voice crackled down the line, full of urgency. We received your message. What is going on? Fraud? Foundation issues? We were about to wire the down payment this morning. Explain yourself. Devin's breath stopped. His blood seemed to drain out of him all at once. He recognized the voice immediately. Tasha, the key client, the gateway to his golden commission. Her usual warmth was gone, replaced by raw anger and disbelief. Tasha, it's Devin, he said quickly. There must be a misunderstanding. Simone is emotional. It's probably just, well, you know, a woman thing. The house is exactly what I showed you. It's in perfect condition. Do not patronize me. Tasha snapped, her tone turning to ice. Your wife sent a very specific warning. She said you had foundation problems. She used the word fraud. Marcus already reviewed the documents she forwarded. There are missing geotechnical reports. Gaps. That is not a mistake, Devin. She's exaggerating, he blurted. There are minor cosmetic issues. Hairline cracks. I was going to tell you, but I wanted to negotiate a better price and present it as a discount. It's all under control. Competitors are trying to. You were going to tell us after we moved our children into a structure under potential risk. Tasha cut him off, her voice now rigid with fury. We trusted you because Simone vouched for you. We expected transparency, not games. We are contacting your firm and our attorney right now. We have copies of everything she sent. You won't see a cent from us. And you won't see any future referrals either. The call ended with a sharp click that felt like a trapdoor giving way beneath him. Devin stood frozen in the open kitchen, gripping the cheap phone like a lifeline. Panic surged through him, fast and brutal. He called back, but his number had already been blocked. He tried Marcus, also blocked. The deal was gone. The deal of the century, the fantasy he'd been feeding himself for months, had evaporated before he'd even stepped into the office. He barely had time to process this before his own phone exploded with another call. Adrian's name flashed, surrounded by a creeping sense of doom. Devin swallowed and answered. Devin, Adrian roared without greeting. What in God's name have you done? Devin pulled the phone away from his ear. His boss's voice was filled with more than anger. It was fear. Marcus and Tasha Jones just informed me that you hid structural defects in Stonehaven. They say they have documentation, screenshots, reports, and that Simone gave them everything. It's blown out of proportion, Devin insisted, his voice shaking. They misunderstood. I was going to negotiate. You were going to what? Adrian's tone dropped to something dangerously calm. You were going to take their money knowing the property could degrade in a few years? You tampered with internal records, concealed crucial risk reports, and tied this firm to your greed. Do you understand what you've done? You have exposed us to investigations, lawsuits, reputational damage we may never recover from. For a car. For a commission. Devin's mind scrambled. He tried to plead, to pivot, to lie more skillfully, but every word felt useless, childish in the face of Adrian's icy rage. You're finished here, Adrian said finally. Your office access is revoked. Your work account is being locked now. Consider yourself fired, not quietly, not gently, but loudly. I will personally make sure any brokerage worth its license knows what you've done. If the Joneses pursue legal action, I will hand over everything we have on you myself. We are not going down with you. The call ended, leaving only an empty hum. The silence afterward felt heavier than any shouting ever could. Devin lowered the phone slowly. His hands were damp. His shirt stuck to his back. In a matter of minutes, the career he'd built his identity on had collapsed. The firm had cut him loose, his top clients despised him, and the Stonehaven deal, the cornerstone of his fantasies, had turned into an indictment. He stared at the polished surface of the kitchen counter, his reflection warped and small. Before he could regain his breath, another notification popped up on his screen. This time, it was an official email from the bank's legal department. Dear co-borrower, Devin Vance. We confirm receipt of an application from co-borrower Simone R. concerning restructuring of the mortgage loan and division of shared assets. You are required to visit the branch to review the claim within 3 business days. In the event of your non-appearance, the matter will be transferred to the court, with priority given to the financially stable co-borrower. He read it twice, the words blurring. Simone had not only disrupted his deal, she had moved swiftly to protect herself, using the very mortgage he'd once believed trapped her to leverage him out of their home. The condo, the mortgage, the status, the projected windfall. Every pillar of security he had relied on was suddenly tilting beneath him. For the first time, he felt a cold, unfamiliar truth dragging at his chest. He was no longer the one holding power. Simone was. Devin reacted on instinct. When his career teetered and the bank called, he reached for the person he thought would steady him, Tiffany. The woman he'd once paraded in his mind as an upgrade from Simone, the proof that he could do better, younger, more glamorous. He dialed her number with trembling fingers, pacing the living room in his rumpled designer shirt. "Hey, Dev," came her sleepy voice, languid and slightly amused. "You're up early. What's going on?" He clung to that familiar tone like a drowning man grabbing a floating piece of wood. "Tiff, something happened," he said quickly. "I got fired. My wife went to the clients, to the bank. She's trying to destroy me. I need a place to stay for a while. A month, maybe. Just until I get a new position. You know how fast I bounce back. I'm closer. I'll land something. Wait." Her voice sharpened. "Fired? For what?" He explained in fragments, glossing over his own part, blaming jealous competitors, a vindictive spouse, a misunderstanding. He tried to emphasize how unfair everything was, how he was being punished for one tiny oversight. Silence stretched on the line. A silence filled not with sympathy, but with calculation. "So," she said at last, "you're unemployed. Under investigation. Your wife is suing. Your name is about to be dragged through the mud. And you want to move into my small apartment. Why exactly?" "Because we're together," he insisted. "We talked about the future. I bought you things. The watch, the trips, the dinners. You know how much I've done for us. I just need support right now. After all I gave you, I thought." "Devin," she interrupted, now almost bored. "We both knew what this was. You gave me gifts and attention. I gave you my time and made you feel important. That worked while you were a rising star. But this," she let out a soft scoff, "this is a drama. Lawyers, scandal, financial collapse. I've always told you I wanted stability, remember? Right now, you are the opposite of that. I am not about to risk my reputation or my comfort for someone who couldn't even manage their own career." He stammered, begged, reminded her of things he'd bought, promises they'd made. She cut in, firmer this time. "I liked you when you were successful," she said plainly. "I'm not interested in being the audience for your downfall. Don't call me again. It's over." The line went dead. The rejection sliced deeper than he'd expected. Tiffany's words stripped away the last comforting lie, that someone, anyone, loved him for who he really was. Instead, she had treated him exactly as he'd treated everyone else, as a transaction. Now that his value had dropped to zero, so had her interest. Over the next few days, Devin thrashed around in a widening circle of consequences. He called Marcus and Tasha again and again until he was permanently blocked. He left voicemails for Adrian that were never returned. He reached out to colleagues who responded with polite evasions or didn't respond at all. His name had become a warning. Eventually, he made his way to the bank. Walking into the downtown office felt like marching to an execution. The sleek suits and polished shoes around him might as well have been distant ghosts from a past life. He was led into a small, windowless room that smelled faintly of old folders and stale air. A lawyer waited for him there, a thin, gray-haired man with a carefully pressed suit and eyes that held no warmth at all. "Mr. Avery," representing Simone. "Mr. Vance," Avery began, not bothering to stand. He gestured to the hard chair across from him. "You have received the official notice. We are here to confirm your understanding of the mortgage restructuring and division of assets requested by Ms. Simone Rhodes." Devin sat, clutching the armrests as though they might stop him from sliding off the edge of the world. "She's doing this to hurt me," he blurted out. "She's bitter. She wants revenge. This is our home. My home. I bought it. I'll get another job. I'll pay off the loan. She's overreacting. The property is co-owned," Avery replied flatly. "Your contributions and hers are both accounted for. However, your current unemployment, combined with documented evidence of professional misconduct, severely undermines your claim as a stable borrower. Ms. Rhodes has a confirmed promotion, stable income, and pre-approval for a new loan. The bank will not prioritize you as sole owner. The condo will be sold, the balance settled, and the remainder divided equally. This is not revenge, Mr. Vance. It is risk management. She's trying to ruin my life," he insisted, voice cracking. "Just because she's jealous of Tiffany. Avery's gaze lifted at that, cool and unwavering. Your personal narrative is irrelevant here. The only thing that matters to the bank and to the court is that your behavior created serious financial danger for her. She is removing herself from that danger. You will need to vacate the property within the stipulated time frame. If you wish to contest any detail, you may file a formal motion. Otherwise, sign the acknowledgement and spare us all the theatrics. The legal language, the indifferent tone, the neat pile of documents, all of it made Devin feel small, reduced to a case number. He left the bank with a numb heaviness settling over his chest. The mortgage, which he'd once wielded as proof Simone couldn't leave him, had become a weapon in her hands. He had tried to trap her with debt. She had turned that trap inside out and walked away first. Days blurred. He polished his resume, inflated his achievements, and sent it everywhere he could. No firm would touch him. Potential employers cited reputation concerns or made vague references to due diligence and external references. He heard Adrian's name more than once, whispered like a final verdict. The reflection that stared back at him in the mirror was already changing, shadows under his eyes, stubble he forgot to shave, the expensive shirt hanging crookedly. The glossy image he'd cultivated so carefully was dissolving faster than he could fix it. Behind that unraveling image, Simone's plan moved forward without a hitch. Simone's strategy hadn't been born out of a single night's anger. It had been forming slowly, piece by piece, over months. The seed had been planted years earlier, watching her mother rebuild a life from ruin. A month before everything came crashing down, Simone had gone to visit her mother, Aisha, in a quiet neighborhood far from the city's glittering skyline. The air there was full of the smell of damp soil, lavender, and fresh grass. Nothing like the filtered, artificial air of the condo. Aisha stood among rose bushes, trimming away withered blossoms with practiced, careful snips. Her face carried lines of pain and endurance, but her posture was steady. She knew what it meant to be betrayed. Simone's father had abandoned them decades ago for a younger woman, leaving Aisha with little more than debt and bruised trust. "You're too quiet," Aisha said, pausing to study her daughter's face. "And the quiet you have right now worries me. Silence can be a shield, or it can be a trap. It depends what you do with it." Simone's voice had been little more than a whisper. "I don't want to fight. I don't want to scream until I break myself. I'm tired, Mama. If I start, I won't know how to stop. I'm afraid I'll lose more than I gain." Aisha set the pruning shears aside and took Simone's hands into her own earth-stained fingers. "You don't need to burn yourself up to confront a man like that," she said. "Anger is like fire. Hot fire jumps in every direction and scorches you first. You need something cooler. You need to figure out exactly what he worships, what he thinks makes him superior, and take that away, not out of spite, but to protect yourself. That's not revenge, child. That's justice with a clear head." That conversation had changed everything. Simone realized she didn't need a dramatic scene or emotional warfare. She needed a plan. 2 months before the final showdown, she'd approached her former boss at Omni Structura, Mr. Henderson, a man who valued her not as an accessory, but as a professional with rare skills. He had offered her a major promotion in supply chain management. She hadn't refused. She had deferred, explaining bluntly that she wanted to enter that role free of any financial entanglement with her husband, whose choices might taint the company by association. "I don't want my private situation to become a risk for the firm," she told him. "I'll accept the position after I've separated my finances and legal obligations." He respected that. He gave her the promotion and a strong written reference specifically highlighting her reliability and integrity, documents that later impressed the bank and underpinned her case for loan restructuring. While Devin boasted to colleagues and Tiffany about the Stonehaven Commission, Simone quietly gathered contracts, emails, foundation reports, and bank statements. She consulted with lawyers, accountants, and trusted colleagues. She mapped every possible consequence, every legal angle. She was not trying to smash his life at random. She was carefully removing herself from the blast radius of his choices. She thought often of one clear message in her mind: "I don't hate him. I refuse to waste energy on hatred. I want distance, safety, and a future that isn't built on lies." As the condo sale went through and the court formalized the division of assets, she moved into a smaller but sunlit apartment in a safer neighborhood. Her new place smelled of fresh paint, clean laundry, and strong coffee. No trace of Devon's cologne, no ghost of his late-night returns. She focused on her new role, late-night work, certifications, and courses that would expand her career worldwide. Devon, meanwhile, clung to the old condo until the last possible day, surrounded by empty rooms and echoing regrets. He tried once more to insert himself into Simone's life. He waited for her outside her new corporate building one afternoon, unshaven, wrinkled, and desperate, his expensive clothes now hanging poorly on his slimmer frame. When she stepped out with two colleagues, he rushed toward her. "Simone," he called, his voice cracking. "Please, talk to me. We were a family. You can't just—" Her steps slowed, but she didn't look shaken. Her expression was composed, her posture grounded, her gaze level. Her colleagues watched, puzzled. She gave them a slight nod that said everything. "He's no one you need to worry about." "Mr. Vance," she said, her tone professional and distant. "If you have legal or financial concerns, speak to my attorney. As for personal matters, I consider them closed. We have nothing more to discuss." "You destroyed me," he cried, hands raised helplessly. "You left me with nothing. You walked away when I needed you most." She took a step closer, not out of sympathy, but to make sure her words landed. "No," she said quietly. "You did that to yourself. When you decided that money mattered more than respect, when you thought lies and affairs were worth more than the person who built a life beside you, that's when you started losing everything. I didn't ruin you. I moved out of the way of the collapse you created. All I did was refuse to lie under the rubble with you." Then she turned and got into a waiting car. The door closed, the car pulled away, and he was left on the sidewalk, pounding uselessly on the air as traffic swept past, indifferent and loud. No one turned to look twice. Her life, slowly but surely, was rising onto new ground. He was sliding deeper into the cracks he had ignored. The day he finally handed over the condo keys felt less like a move out and more like a funeral for his old life. Devon packed what he could into cheap cardboard boxes, leaving behind items that once defined him. The finely tailored suits, the designer shoes, the framed photos of staged achievements. They felt like costumes from a role he'd been fired from, and he couldn't bear to look at them. The new owners looked at him like a nuisance. The man checked his watch impatiently. "At last," he said. "We've been waiting. Just leave the keys and go." No sympathy, no curiosity, just the irritation reserved for someone late to vacate a property. Devon descended the stairs with his boxes, each step heavier than the last. The condo door closed behind him, and with it, the last physical piece of his carefully curated persona. With nowhere else to go, he turned to a distant relative, Aunt Clarice, who lived in a small, dated house on the edge of the city. The air there smelled of dust, mothballs, and damp leaves, a far cry from polished stone and scented candles. She agreed to take him in, but only under strict conditions. He would pay his way through chores, repairs, and endless small tasks around the house. "You had a good woman," she reminded him regularly as he fumbled through yard work and uneven home repairs. "Quiet on the surface, but deep where it mattered. You thought you were the ocean when you were barely a puddle. All shows, no depth. Now look where that got you." Every remark landed like a blow, but he had nowhere else to go. With his name blacklisted in his former industry, the only job he could find was in a warehouse. The work was brutal for someone used to climate-controlled offices and long lunches. He lifted crates, dragged pallets, and stacked boxes until his hands split and his back screamed. The skin on his fingers grew rough and cracked. His shoulders carried the ache of physical labor he had never imagined doing. The mirror now reflected someone almost unrecognizable, a man whose once neatly styled hair hung limp, whose jaw was dulled by uneven stubble, whose eyes had lost their confident gleam and now flickered with constant weariness. No one at the warehouse cared who he used to be. To them, he was just another worker punching a time card. One evening, as he sat at Aunt Clarice's chipped kitchen table, staring at a bowl of thin reheated stew, his phone rang. The caller ID displayed Avery's name. "Mr. Vance," the lawyer said when Devon answered, his voice as composed and formal as ever. "I'm calling to inform you that all legal procedures concerning your marriage to Ms. Rhodes are now officially closed. The property has been sold, the mortgage cleared, and funds divided according to the court's ruling. You no longer have any obligations or ties to Ms. Rhodes." A strange, hollow sensation washed through Devon. "And what about her?" he asked dully, not sure why he wanted to know, yet unable not to. Ms. Rhodes used her share to purchase a small condo in a safer area outright, Avery replied. She has also invested in further education. She completed a master's degree in international supply and logistics and obtained a global certification. Her position has advanced significantly, and she is apparently regarded with high respect in her field. She is doing very well. Devin pressed the phone harder against his ear, as if physical pressure could change the words. "And me?" he asked, the question small and raw. "You?" Avery repeated, pausing. "You are where your own choices have brought you. Ms. Rhodes feels nothing toward you now, not love, not hatred, not pity, just complete indifference. For someone like you, that is perhaps the deepest defeat. Your current situation is the natural outcome of your decisions. She has moved on. You are left to face the results of the life you built on appearances and deceit." The call ended. The kitchen seemed to close in around him. The smell of stew, the worn linoleum, the faded curtains, all felt like proof that the life he'd once bragged about was gone for good. He looked down at his roughened hands, still marked by dust from the warehouse. Not too long ago, those same hands had signed deals, flashed credit cards, and wrapped themselves around the steering wheels of expensive cars. Now they carried crates and scrubbed floors in a house that wasn't his. Simone, he realized, hadn't shouted, thrown things, or staged some dramatic revenge scene. She had simply stepped out of the illusion and let the unstable structure of his life topple under its own weight. She had used the very skills he mocked, her attention to detail, her long memory, her understanding of contracts and numbers, to cut herself free and let him face the consequences alone. He was left to live with the wreckage, his reputation in ruins, his career erased, his deal of the century transformed into a permanent stain on his name. In the quiet moments after his shifts, he sometimes pictured her on a balcony somewhere, coffee in hand, looking out over a city that now held no hold over her. Not triumphant, not gloating, simply calm and free. His fall was not a violent crash, but a long, dragging descent into a life stripped of pretense. Day after day, he was forced to confront who he was without the suit, without the condo, without admiration. No shortcuts, no quick deals, no shortcuts back to the top. Somewhere far above that slow spiral downward, Simone continued building. Her life stood on solid footing now. Her own work, her own name, her own choices. She didn't watch him closely, didn't track his misery. She didn't need to. She had stepped away from the wreckage with a clear conscience and a hard-earned understanding. Respect, honesty, and self-worth were worth more than any glittering, hollow promise. Devin, stranded in the smallness of his new reality, was left to weed his own ruined garden, alone, and at last without anyone else to blame.